So as we inch closer to the Kade Bell era of Pitt football, the Kade Bell offense era at Pitt football, questions remain about what this is all going to look like, how it's going to work, if it's going to work, which is probably the biggest question of all. But right along with that is a question of what will the quarterback play look like? Is there a certain type of quarterback that Kade Bell wants to have in his offense? Is there a quarterback or a type of quarterback or a certain style of play that Kade Bell feels like fits his offense best? He says no, it's no big deal. But in the class of 2025, he's been offering new high school recruits, guys who are finishing up their junior years and heading toward their senior year. And as we look at those recruits, does that give us any insight on what Kade Bell is looking for out of the quarterback position? Let's examine those recruits. Let's examine what Kade Bell's quarterbacks have done in the past in terms of mobility versus pocket passers at Western Carolina and beyond. And let's try and get a sense of what Kade Bell really wants in a quarterback here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, in the last couple of weeks or so, Kade Bell has offered a couple new quarterback recruits, guys in the 2025 recruiting class. Those are guys who will be seniors in the fall. So, that's really the next big recruiting class. That's the next recruiting class. That's who all the focus is on right now after the 2024 recruiting class signed largely in December and then some signed a week ago in February. But the focus is on the 2025 recruiting class. That's who you're looking at now. It's the next big group of guys to be targeting. And so we've seen Kade Bell go out and start offering recruits. So let's look at some of those high school recruits, what that tells us about what he's trying to get. Because, look, if you want to talk about style, type of player, who he feels fits his offense the best, it's the guys he's going out and recruiting right now. He may or may not be able to make it work with the guys who are on the roster right now, but the guys that he is recruiting right now are the ones that really kind of give you a sense of what he wants in a quarterback. So I think it's interesting to sort of examine those guys as a bit of a window onto Kade Bell's preferences. Of course, you know the deal. As always, this is the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans all day, every day. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for your Pitt sports coverage, and message boards, of course, where all the Pitt fans are hanging out all day long. It's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find, not without its ups and downs, for sure, but through it all, it's a good community to be a part of if you're a Pitt fan. So check it out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And then our YouTube channel right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is the place we put all of our Pitt video content. These daily morning Pitt videos, Monday through Friday, our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock like we did last night. With your comments and questions, have a little bit of a talk show back and forth type of thing. And then, or almost more of like a call-in show, really. And then our post-game shows that we do after every road basketball game. We did it after the Virginia game on Tuesday night. That was a lot of fun hanging out. We talked for about 45 minutes. Probably could have gone for like twice that time. But it's a school night, it was getting kind of late. But we had a lot of fun talking after that game. It was good to get your comments and questions in and sort of have that interaction, that back and forth. And we do it all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our video content, any of our Morning Pitt videos, or any of our live streams or our post-game shows, or whatever it may be, subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. The button is right down there. You can probably see it. Click that thing, and then you can turn on notifications. You'll get an alert sent to your phone, so you'll never miss any of our Pitt video content. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So, Kade Bell, what does he want in a quarterback? What's he looking for? I think it's an interesting question. It's something we've wondered about, and he addressed this. He was asked, it was last Wednesday when he spoke to the media for the first time since taking the Pitt job. Kade Bell was asked, quote, how important is quarterback mobility to your offense? And Bell says, quote, I don't think it matters. I know people would probably think that because we're a tempo and we spread it around, but let me read this again with a different inflection to make more sense. He says, quote, I don't think it matters. I know people would probably think that because we're a tempo and we spread it around, but to me, I feel like the way the system is, you give me Tom Brady, I think we can go win with him. You give me Lamar Jackson, I can go win with him. I try to build, once a guy is the starter, I'm going to build the system around who the starting quarterback is. It ain't about me. I don't have no ego. I've already played. I went through college. I'm going to, hey, this is what we do well. This is what the quarterback does well. How do we put him in position to be successful? How do we make his job easier? That's just how the offense fits. The offense is probably going to look different every year depending on who's behind center. I think that's what's great about the offense. It's certainly a sign of the 21st century when you say who's behind center as opposed to who's under center, given the preponderance of shotgun, which even Frank Cignetti's offense used a lot of shotguns. So that's pretty standard at this point. But that's his quote. That's how he answers the question. That's what he says. That, he's going to tailor it to whatever quarterback he has. And I think there's probably some truth to that. And as a matter of fact, I think when you look back at Kade Bell's offenses at Western Carolina and you look at the quarterback play, and what he got out of various guys and kind of the production and the play calling and how they operated the offense, you do see some variety. So, I mean, this past season, 2023, I counted up on their roster and their stats, just looking at raw stats without any context. We'll add context in a second. Western Carolina recorded 85 rushing attempts by quarterbacks. 85. Pitt recorded 82. So I don't think you would look at Western Carolina's offense and say, boy, that was a running quarterback system, because they basically had the quarterback running as much as Pitt had the quarterback running. And would you say Pitt had a running quarterback system? No. Now, both of those numbers do include sacks, and that's always a sort of a clarification you have to make, or an extra context to add when you're talking about college football stats, because sacks count as quarterback rushing attempts. And so that's something to consider. But even so, I didn't write down who had more sacks or who gave up more sacks last season, Pitt or Western Carolina. Regardless, the fact that they ended up with roughly the same number of quarterback rushing attempts, sacks included, kind of tells me that it wasn't a big point of emphasis to have designed quarterback runs for the quarterback at Western Carolina. Now, you go back to 2022, and it gets a little more interesting when you look at Western Carolina's offense. They had 115 quarterback rushing attempts. They allowed 21 sacks. So you're looking at about 94 quarterback rushing attempts in 11 games. Now, those might include scrambles, but I think when you gave up 21 sacks in 11 games, I don't think pressure was a huge issue. I think you're probably looking at most of those 94 quarterback rushing attempts over 11 games being designed runs. Carlos Davis, in particular, played 7 games at quarterback for Western Carolina in 2022. He had 68 rushing attempts in 7 games. You're looking at a guy who recorded a rushing attempt almost 10 times per game over the course of the time he was playing. Now, some of those, again, will be sacks, some will be scrambles, but even if you take off 2 attempts per game, if he's carrying, or 3 even, if he's carrying the ball 6-7 times per game on designed runs, that's a running quarterback offense. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't say a running quarterback offense. It's not like an option. They're not Navy, but it's clearly an element in the offense. If you're running it that often on designed running plays for the quarterback, or even if it's like an option play or something like that, where the quarterback run is an element of the offense, that's very different, I think, from what you saw. Certainly what you saw at Pitt last year, but I think even what Western Carolina probably did last year. And you could go back to 2021, Kade Bell's first year with Western Carolina as the offensive coordinator, and you see similar things. 118 quarterback rushing attempts over the course of the season. Again, 11 games. You take out 21 sacks, same number as 2022. You take out 21 sacks, you end up with 97 quarterback rushing attempts over the course of 11 games, almost 9 per game. And here again, even if you're going to take 1 or 2 away as scrambles, you're looking at 6 or 7 designed quarterback runs per game. Carlos Davis, again, had 28 quarterback rushing attempts in 5 games. Rogan Willis, 90 quarterback rushing attempts in 9 games. I think you can see, or I could see, some variances there. So 2021 and 22, I think Kade Bell felt like he had a running quarterback who could be a threat in the run game. And so he did more of that in those years. When he didn't have those guys this past season, the quarterback runs went down, to where they were roughly on the same number as Pitt, sacks included. And so you do see some adjustments being made there. You see the offense being tailored to the quarterback style. And that only makes sense. I mean, like, you would have to be an idiot to really, square peg, round hole it with the quarterback you put on the field. I mean, every guy is different. And there might be enough overlap between, say, Nate Yarnell and Christian Verb that you can run largely the same stuff with those two guys. But different quarterbacks are going to have different systems and different things that fit. We'll see what Kade Bell feels about Eli Holstein or Ty Diefenbach or Julian Duggar and how he tailors the offense to those guys. But you do see him sort of, broadly speaking, adjusting the offense to the guys that he's got. Now, that's the guys that he has. He didn't really recruit. I mean, he probably had some hand in recruiting some of the quarterback roster he worked with at Western Carolina. He obviously didn't recruit Eli Holstein. I mean, he was involved there. I think, but he didn't pick Holstein off the bat. I think that was sort of in motion before Bell got hired. I think he was being targeted as a potential addition before Bell got hired is probably the best way to say it, because he hadn't gone into the transfer portal yet. But you understand what I'm saying, that Bell, this 2025 recruiting class is where he's really going to sort of identify the guys who fit what he wants to do the best. And he probably wouldn't like you saying, oh, who are the guys who fit your system? Because he would say, well, the system fits the quarterback. It's not the other way around. And that's the right approach to take. But I think you can take that approach. You can say the system fits the quarterback, not the other way around. But there's still an ideal guy. There's still a preference that he would have for a certain type of quarterback. And to date, as far as we know, and I understand that there's a possibility that another quarterback could get offered by the time you watch this video. But we know of 4 quarterbacks who have gotten offers from Pitt under Kade Bell. If you go on the Rivals.com database and look at offers from Pitt for quarterbacks in the 2025 recruiting class, there are a lot of them, because Frank Cignetti and John DiBiase offered a lot of quarterbacks over the course of the last 2 years. Most of them aren't hearing from Pitt anymore. Most of them aren't Pitt targets. Quite frankly, most of them weren't going to be Pitt targets even if Cignetti was still here. Looking at the newest offers, there's 4. There's 4 that we've tracked that have gone out from Kade Bell. I forget the exact order. And actually, Bell has picked up the recruitment of 1 or 2 guys that Cignetti was after. But let's just look at the new offers that he's sent out. And it's interesting because there's a bit of a mix of talent here as well. So there's Malik Washington, a 4-star prospect at Archbishop Spalding in Maryland. He's really a drop-back passer. Doesn't run a lot, carried the ball 29 times this past season, which is a decent amount, but I don't think it was a main facet or a main, element of that offense. He did score 6 rushing touchdowns on those 29 attempts, but he also threw for, more than 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. You watch his film, he's dropping back most of the time. There's a little bit of scramble, either to keep a play alive or to take off and run, but he's dropping back most of the time. There's Christian Nunley, quarterback out of Conroe, Texas. Pitt was really the first big offer for Nunley. He's a guy who runs a lot of draws. He really gets out and goes. He played 7 games this past season. He had 104 rushing attempts for 639 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 6.1 yards per carry. And, 104 attempts in 7 games, those weren't all scrambles. Nunley's getting out and running. Now, he also threw for 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 6 picks. But he's a running quarterback. He's a guy who's going to get out and make plays with his legs, in addition to throwing pretty well. There's Mason Heinschel. I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's at Clay High School in Oregon, Ohio. Yes, Oregon, Ohio. Why would you name a town after a state? Or maybe they named the state after the town. Maybe a family fled the city of or the town of Oregon, Ohio, and went to Oregon and renamed. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Mason Heinschel is a guy who describes himself as an improviser. All right, he likes to use his legs. He likes to keep plays alive. He had 700 rushing yards this past season and threw for 3,000 yards and more than 30 touchdowns. He had more than 3,000 yards of total offense, passing and rushing combined, rushed for about 700 yards, and scored more than 30 touchdowns rushing and passing. He's a guy who uses his legs to make plays, and he's getting out on design runs. He's getting out On scrambles, he's scrambling to keep the play alive to make a pass downfield. He's scrambling to pick up the yards himself. He's definitely a mobile quarterback. And then I think the most recent offer went to Plant City, Florida quarterback Chris Denson, a lefty, actually, which is interesting, like Julian Duggar and like Kade Bell himself, a left-handed quarterback. And he's a guy who rushed 82 times last season. Ran for 688 yards and 3 touchdowns. He averaged more than 8 yards per carry. A lot of those were draws. In addition to some scrambles and whatnot, he threw for more than 2,000 yards and 26 touchdowns. And so what you see as we look at these 4 guys, I mean, Washington, who has the ability to run, only carried the ball about 29 times last season. But the other 3, I think you would say are absolutely mobile quarterbacks, guys who want to get out, keep the play alive, looking downfield to throw, or running design runs, or scrambling for first downs. And it's just, to a certain extent, I mean, this is what every coordinator and every coach wants. They want that quarterback who can keep a play alive, that quarterback who can use his legs to extend a play and either run for a first down or scramble, get out of trouble when the pocket collapses and the play breaks down, keep his eyes downfield and make a big play by using his legs to keep the play going. Everybody wants that. I mean, that's not necessarily unique. And I think there are a few guys, a few coordinators out there who would say, our ideal quarterback is that guy who drops back and stands in the pocket and never moves. I mean, nobody wants that. Nobody wants the statue. Everybody wants somebody who can run. What's interesting to me about Denson, Heinschel, and Nunley is that these are guys who are doing designed runs in high school. They're running intentionally in high school. They're not just scrambling. They're not just getting out of trouble. They're not just keeping the play alive, but they're getting out and running. And so, I think at Western Carolina, Kade Bell tailored his offense to the players he had. And when he had running quarterbacks who could make plays with their legs, he used that as a weapon in the offense. And when he maybe didn't have as much of a threat there, he didn't try to use it. And so you look at the quarterbacks that he has offered, I think you're seeing guys that he can use not just to keep the play alive, but use in an intentional manner, use on designed runs, draws, options, and things like that. Now, I don't know how that'll translate to Pitt's quarterback room this year. I don't really expect to see Nate Yarnell or whoever ends up being the starter. I'm just going to sort of operate on the assumption that Nate Yarnell wins the job, holds on to the job, I should say. I don't see him running a lot of draws, maybe 1 or 2 per game, not 6 or 7 or 5 or even 4. I could see it every now, like I say, like once or twice per game. I could see designed runs for a guy like Nate Yarnell. I think he runs well enough that you could get something out of it, but you're not going to have it be a primary function of the offense like it seems like it was at Western Carolina in 2021 and 2022. But I think once a guy like some of these recruits we're talking about, Chris Denson or Christian Nunley or Mason Heinschel, once one of these guys, a guy like that, if Pitt ends up with one of those 3 or a player like one of those 3, I think you could see it work into the offense a little bit more. I think you could see it become an element of the offense and a part of what Kade Bell tries to do. It really is. I think when you look at the recruiting targets, that's going to tell you as much as anything about what a coach is looking for in the players that he puts on the field, particularly a new coach who's going to come in and tell you that all the guys he's inherited are really good players and he's excited about working with them and he'll tailor the offense and make it fit around them. Meanwhile, he's going to go out and recruit the guys who actually fit what he wants to do, what he believes is the most effective approach. And if we look at the guys that Kade Bell has offered so far, he wants to have the quarterback run as part of the offense. That's my thought. Now, we'll go into this season and it won't be part of it, because they might not have the guys who can run like that. But down the road, if Kade Bell ends up, assuming he's here long enough to get one of these guys into the system and developed, it could be, I think it'll be part of the offense. So it's always interesting to follow the recruiting. There's a lot of reasons to follow recruiting, and that's one of them, is it gives you a little bit of insight into what the coaches want personnel-wise and the types of players, the types of skill, the skill sets they want to have on the team. And so we thank these recruits for giving us a little bit of insight on Kade Bell. Listen, for all the Pitt football, basketball, and recruiting coverage, you want to stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com. 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 Pittsburgh.rivals.com is the place to get all of your Pitt sports news and with message boards to talk with other Pitt fans about everything that's going on. So make sure you tune into the website, Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe. Of course, YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you don't miss anything we do here on YouTube. And yeah, we have our mailbag tomorrow. So if you are a subscriber to Panther-Lair.com, you can go on the message board, the Between Fifth and Forbes message board. We've got a thread there taking questions for the mailbag. Jump in there, ask your questions, and we will answer as many as we can in the mailbag tomorrow on the Morning Pit. I always look forward to doing that. I hope you enjoy listening to it and contributing to it. I appreciate everyone's contributions for sure. All right, I hope you've had a great week so far. Enjoy your Thursday. We'll be back with you for the Morning Pit mailbag tomorrow right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.